What's going on, everybody? We are back today for Rapid Fire Wednesdays, where we do rapid fire features, rapid fire fun, rapid fire content, and rapid fire coaching. We mix it up, we keep it fresh, we keep it moving, and we keep everything in movement because that's what life is all about. You know, this week in general for our organization has had a theme around strong relationships, strong connections. And we know that what is literally woven into the fabric of our society is relationships and connection. However, we don't often actually have the level of relationships and connection that we want. There's a whole lot of interference. There's a whole lot of resistance and energy drain. And there's a lot of things that we've done as a common and up and coming society world with new technology that's actually gotten in the way of our ability to have a relationship with not only ourselves, but with those that are closest around us. So today, we are going to be having a guest come in. If she's able to get in here and join, I'm noticing at the moment that our team is telling us that she is not here. And so I am instead going to take a little bit of a different approach for just a few minutes. Today, I think maybe one of the things that we can do as well, and I'm saying this to the team, is maybe throw some questions in a banner and we can answer some questions right now, have a little bit of fun while we're buying some time, and or answer some serious questions so that we can get into the content and coaching side. And so one of the things that I have really focused on a lot recently for myself is putting myself into a position with the level of consciousness where I can be the observer and the participant in my own life real time. That requires a high level of self-awareness. It requires a high level of intentionality. And it certainly requires a level of understanding in who you are, healing pain, shedding layers. But what I found is that so many situations in my life, I was blind, I was unaware, I was unconscious to the way that I was navigating through the world. And so I would have my own unique experience based in my own lens, viewing interactions, business, relationships, and life through this very particular lens. But that was really the only perspective I was able to glean until later. And when later would happen, either damage had been created or nothing really consequential took place in that interaction, but it was still an opportunity to learn and grow from how it developed. And so often I would get myself into an intentional reflection practice to be able to look back in my life, look back at the interactions, look back at the relationships, look back at the things that we've done, and look at it through a lens of really evaluation to understand lessons. Look at it through a lens of raising my awareness in that moment. And to look at it through a lens of, again, what are the lessons I can extract so I can become intentional moving forward? See, the reality of it is that often things are going to take place where if we can see things from other people's perspectives real time, if we can see things for the universal perspective real time, if we can put ourselves in a position where we are very tapped into who we are, understanding our internal voice, then we can actually allow external noise to enter back in a way that we can filter it and refine it as to how we interpret the moment that we're in. The observer and the participant real time means that you have a connected relationship with yourself and a connected relationship with the universe around you, as well as a connected relationship with any and all who are involved in that situation. It allows you to be open and to connect at a level that allows strong relationships to actually exist. And so today, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to ask the team real quick, have we had a chance to get any questions preloaded in here that we can answer? And we will do this. Okay. What can you do when your truth is offensive to others? That's a really good question. I would say that if it is truly your truth, objectively, focusing on facts, then I would hope that your truth is truly just the perspective on how you saw things rather than something that's going to confine, suppress, or offend other people. So in that situation, if you owning your truth, you setting your effective boundary, you communicating around what actually has to happen in a relationship or a situation offends someone, then that to me means it's time for you to pause and reflect for yourself. What did you say? How did you say it? What energy was it delivered with? And put yourself into a position where you take extreme and complete ownership as if the offending them was on purpose and you knew exactly how and why it happened. analyze that situation for just a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds, depending on how quickly you process, and recognize, is there something that could have been improved in the way that we presented information? You know, the reality of it is that there are times when our truth doesn't get demonstrated or communicated effectively, and it's going to be that will offend someone else because it will be received in an energy differently than what we intended, either because of a blind spot in ourselves, which is the first thing we're talking about, or a blind spot for the other person. There are times that we can deliver messages completely neutrally and diffused, completely in alignment with what we intend, completely with the right words, the right energy, the right delivery, and the right timing. However, it still may not be received. And so often that means then that there's a block or an emotional trigger or behavioral pattern or a preset conceived set of beliefs and notions based on who they think you are or what they've been conditioned to believe based on how others have approached them to either protect, or they will get offended in some way or another because of how it came across. So I think offense doesn't always actually happen from a place where offense is actually in place by owning a truth. It's often going to be either in how it's delivered or how it's received, or unhealed or unprocessed emotional triggers on either side. And so what can you do when your truth is offensive to others? I think it's a moment to pause and raise your level of awareness. Understand, was your truth actually in a way that was going to create damage to others, or might be suppressing, compressing, or confining either other people or a group of other people? And in some cases, that may be a legitimate reason for them to feel defensive or to get offended because of how it's approached or what they believe your belief system or truth is trying to accomplish. But in many cases, it's often a misunderstanding, I believe, especially if you can find a way to use your truth from a place that's fact and objective based. So I can have a conversation with my wife, telling her that the way that we're communicating, I'm not liking the energy that I'm receiving right now from her. That may not be what she's intending, and I may not be receiving it correctly. But it's still something that I would like to shift in the moment, or we need to pause this conversation. That is my truth. It's not saying that she's done something right or wrong. It's not saying that the outcome of the conversation is going to change. It's saying that there's something about the energy that's taking place right now that I'm not either feeling connected, not feeling like I can be completely seen and understood, not feeling connected, or not being able to communicate in a way that I can actually protect my boundaries based on the energy that I receive. My wife can say the exact same thing back to me. And she may say, I don't like how you're talking to me right now. And my intent might not be that I'm talking to her incorrectly, but it may be offending her because of the energy, the tone of the delivery, and how I'm coming across. And so those are moments that I can pause and recheck my own energy. And if I believe that I'm aligned, if I believe it's neutralized and diffused and it might be a block on her side, then either find other words, pause the conversation and revisit it, or move on, depending on what the situation is. Sometimes it's not worth ruffling feathers even to own your truth. And so just really pay attention to that. But I think that's a great question, and hopefully we covered it extensively enough. Let's see if there's another question in here. What entrepreneur personal relationship has shifted your level of thinking the most? Well, I would tell you that it would likely, I'm going to answer the question in two different ways. I'm going to talk about an entrepreneur, and then I'm going to talk about a personal relationship, because I think they're two totally different categories. Let's see. An entrepreneur that has shifted my level of thinking the most, I'm going to say might be my good friend, George Bryant. I think that he and I view the world very, very similarly, but the way that we go about it doesn't always look the same, even though we have lots in common. And so because of the resonance, because of the credibility, because of the way that we view and see the world, he's been able to shift the way I view relationships and customer journeys to a deeper level. Though we were always aligned, he's shifted me to recognize that there are actually ways to create systems that work for you that do not take away from the intentional, authentic connection with people, are not going to be just systematized and processed from a spamming perspective, but truly a way to create leverage and scale in the ability to manage through multiple different relationships simultaneously within a business or within your life. And so he's become a dear friend, and I appreciate the way that he puts words into the world, because it always challenges the way I think and feel real time. Personal relationship that shifted my level of thinking the most is probably my son. My son is a reflection of me in so many ways, but he also has so many elements that are better than me, different than me, or are very aligned with my wife. But because of how similar he and I are, he's also one that triggers me the most, which means that when I'm getting triggered, I recognize that it's unhealed or unprocessed emotional triggers or behavioral patterns. And most of the time when I get triggered, it has nothing to do with the other person, it has everything to do with me. So because he's had the ability for me to see how I was at his age, to connect with it, to understand it, but also because of his ability to be who he is confidently because of how we're raising him, he has challenged me in the way that I think, in the way that I approach, in the way that I communicate, in the way that I touch, in the way that I interact with my children in general, and it's elevated me holistically in life. All righty, we're going to kill a few more minutes here, seeing if our guest is going to join. Let's go ahead and ask another couple of questions. How do you tap into your unconscious mind? Do you have practices that have helped you become more aware with your subconscious and unconscious? It starts with just the ability to be. It starts with the ability to breathe. And it starts with the ability to actually get quiet. And so tapping into your unconscious mind can be done through a whole variety of things. People talk about you need structured meditation time to get into flow state. But there are things that we can do that are repetitive actions that actually get us into a flow state that allow us to tap into our unconscious mind. Road biking, for example, was one that did it for me. When I was cycling, when I was training for my triathlon, literally getting into that flow state actually was one of the deepest conscious raising elements in my world. And it allowed me to really tap into that unconscious mind to really make sure that I was open to the downloads that I could receive from the universe. But there are multiple practices that we can deploy as well. And meditation, as I understand it, and the way that I've seen it, because I've worked with a meditation and consciousness coach for over 2.5 years, is really broken into a couple of different categories: concentration, meditation, and visualization. And so I've got different practices that I use and have learned and conditioned in my breath work, in my concentration, in my meditation, and in my visualization to put me into heightened different states within the unconscious mind. I've done sensory deprivation floats for a very long time. Literally the ability to get quiet and put myself into a heightened, elevated meditative state in a tank while I'm also absorbing magnesium with zero sensory input has been a way that I learned how to tap into that unconscious mind at the highest level. A lot of the typical practices and getting into flow state didn't always work for me to truly tap into the deep, dark, hidden areas in my unconscious and subconscious. But when I can get quiet enough in those environments in the sensory deprivation tank, I often have an out-of-body type experience and transport to another world that gives me so much clarity. Now, I know that sounds a little abstract. I know that sounds a little esoteric for those that don't understand what that means, how that actually manifests and comes through our worlds, but it is something that is incredibly helpful for me. I've also recently been doing a number of different things to focus on my autonomic nervous system in general, because what I've found is that one of my biggest blocks in getting into my unconscious mind is when I have a heightened sympathetic nervous system, because my body and my nerves are in a heightened fight or flight state. So where and how I also can calm down my nerves in a place to be able to slow down my energy to get quiet enough to be able to open myself to receive the downloads is one of the other things. So cold plunges, infrared saunas, these things that literally put me into a different state, allow me to receive, allow me to also see myself more clearly. So that is a few of the ways that I've tapped into my unconscious mind. It's one of the ways that I've really been able to channel and understand where my subconscious and my unconscious mind are either creating blind spots for me, but also through more and more of this practice, we put ourselves into a place where we can also be lucid dreaming. We can literally be putting ourselves in a place where we're in an awake dream state that is as if we are in a meditative or operating from our subconscious mind. And so then we can reconcile, we can download, and we can receive at a very high level. And I mean that in everything, in business, in relationships, in health, in life. We get to see ourselves more clearly. So unconscious mind is not something that just happens. We know that our minds process 11 million bits of information per second, but we're only consciously aware of about 40. So that what that says is that we largely live in the unconscious. And until we go through an intentional process to become more aware of our subconscious and unconscious, until we put ourselves in positions to be able to practice the techniques that can lead us down to that path, then we will live forever in the unconscious in a large degree. And that's one of the big parts of our mission is to raise the level of awareness and intentionality for everybody to tap into the core of who they are, to be able to understand that the things that we can access from an energetic perspective, from a consciousness perspective, from a mind perspective, from a knowledge and wisdom perspective, are things that we all have access to. It just requires a little bit of work to put ourselves on the path to create the situation where we can actually receive and be in alignment with who we are. All righty. I think that's what we're going to wrap today. Oh, go ahead. And is love the most powerful force in the universe? Absolutely. I'm going to keep this one really short and sweet. Love literally has the ability to neutralize and diffuse any negative energy. Love has the ability to shine more light into the world than any area of darkness can keep out. Love truly is one of the connecting fibers that allows us to be vulnerable and authentic, that allows us to connect at the deepest levels with humans, that allows us to have strong relationships, that allows us to be aware, that allows us to be authentic, that allows us to truly be safe, protected, seen, understood, and connected. Love is such a powerful force, but I have to tell you that love in its purest form starts inside of you. Love is not just an external action. It's not just a feeling that we receive. Love is something that we can actually manifest. Love is something that we can deploy. Love is something that we can tap into. And when we are tapped into love, when we are connected with love, and we are distributing love through the world, it's incredible how connected we feel to ourselves, those closest to us, and what that love actually does to permeate into their lives to create and propel growth all around. We're going to go ahead and wrap with that today. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And so the question to ask is, do you love yourself? If the answer to that question isn't absolutely no hesitation, yes, then what is the work that's required to get you back into a position to have a love affair with yourself, to get deeply connected with you, to get deeply connected with your most authentic self, to be in alignment with who you are at the core in a way that you will be unmoved by external forces or noise? If you love yourself first, just like if you connect with yourself first, you will be able to love others with way more energy. You cannot pour from an empty cup, but when you tap into loving yourself and when you open yourself to receive through the universe, there is an abundant, unlimited amount of love that can flow through and to all of us. Do you love yourself? Are you open to receiving it? And where and how are you distributing love throughout your world? It's a great question, and I cannot wait to be back next week for another Rapid Fire Wednesday. And hopefully our great guest is okay and nothing traumatic happened, and that we will be able to have her back, because she's an incredible human being that actually does a lot of work in consciousness and using mainstream ancient healing practices and quantum creation to help people connect, move, and grow. Until next time, everybody, be great and be you.